Chapter 31, Bonus, 31. A Dryad's Passion. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The dungeon was filled with a vile stench. Emily entered inside with the succubus enforcement team and their support team of healing fairies. She was apprehensive after hearing the words of Zestria and her colleague on the way here, Emily's chest long churning and filled with worry and pain. Are you doomed? Will I never see your cheeky face again? Why do you have so much effect on me? We've met a few times, it's not just your scent, the essence. I feel more alive than in my hundreds of years when you were there, a simple orc, with your cute almond skin listening to me while peeking at my tits. Her eyes looked at the dreary dungeon void of all noise. There were no corpses so far, which was a good sign. Maybe he managed to escape. Emily wished to herself. Captain Zestria. The huge mana source seems to have vanished. I am not sure what this means, but the last signature was 200 meters east of here. That's likely the poacher's site. A blonde succubus handed a small device to Zestria, who showed a slight frown. The fact that it vanished either means it went dormant after killing the poacher, or rather the Red Skull itself was killed. Troublesome. Zestria muttered as she looked back to her team, armed in light armor. They seemed weak in close combat, but that's how Zestria's unit worked, playing on that misconception to fool enemies into a false sense of security. Let's move faster, the life of our target and meal ticket relies on our quick response. Oh! The succubi shouted, causing Emily to frown. Meal ticket. What do they mean? No way. She suddenly stared daggers towards Zestria, who laughed and turned away, jogging forward, her soft rear swaying madly with her tail raised in the air, now equipped with a sharp spear. Like blade. Emily was a little clumsy, but her heart was racing to feel worried that she might not meet Raven again. It caused her to feel determined, her tiny green legs darting after the agile succubi who began to hover in the air. Even the fairies rushed faster than her. Let's go, Mother of Green Earth, empower my roots. The moment her words ended, a burst of roots began to push through the dungeon floor, almost like a surfboard for Emily as her body began to shoot forward like a bullet from a gun, her face focused. She didn't have a danger level above SSS for no reason. She navigated the tight cavern with ease, her strong roots almost fused with her green feet as she ignored the slight burns from the flames billowing from the roof, burning her flesh and vines. Emily didn't care, her heart was filled with anticipation. Holding her ample breasts with both hands, she flew towards the direction that Zestria's device showed earlier. Raven. Raven. Alistair. Be okay. I'm coming. I'll save you. With a rapidly beating heart, she approached the final entrance, the uneven walls tearing her shoulder as green blood oozed from her shoulder, but she didn't wince nor show pain. Instead, her eyes focused on the sight before her. The man she was falling for was lying on the ground, his body unmoving. No. Raven. Raven. Her roots began to crumble as her speed increased even more, the brown roots snapping under the velocity of her speed before her soft green body flew through the air, tears streaming down her face as she closed her eyes, hoping to land on his body and at least feel his warmth one last time. Please. Mother of the Green Earth, please, help him. Ah. Raven was sleepy. The moment he killed the colossal skeleton, it felt like he was awake for several weeks before lying on the ground with a shit-eating grin on his face. I kill that fucker. Ha ha ha, ouch. Almost an hour after the battle, he began to stir, his body stretching with loud cracks, feeling amazing as if he had just visited a massage with a happy ending, rolling onto his back. Noticing the melted flesh, his missing arm was now back, the skin and flesh even more beautiful. Something else more magnificent was the inside of his abdomen. A small and pretty purple core was hovering in the darkness, the pure energy now forming a tiny amount, but it felt like a significant improvement as it now began to cycle naturally instead of needing to take it all from a female. He took a moment to rest, breathing deeply, as he noticed the strange sensation of the dungeon change. It was fierce and filled with lava and flames when the Ragavad appeared, but now it was quiet and calm, but still, the kobolds didn't respawn. Although if they did, I'd be fucked. I leveled 3 times, right? Level 10, oh, experience. 46 out of 100, processing level, oh, choose your level up reward. June 6th. Raven wasn't in any rush wanting to take his time. Instead, he sprawled out, wondering if there was any loot from the boss, only to find that even the colossal sword began to fade slowly into nothing, a mere pile of bone dust with a blue tinge and a small ring with a black and blue gemstone intertwined gleaming at the top of the pile. He crawled over to the ring because his legs were a little soft and hard to move still. Oh. It's the same as this ring of Lilith's but with larger storage and no special effects. Let's use this as mine. I can now let her enter the dungeon with me, so thankfully, this gift can return to the right hand. He rolled onto his back, the blue dust blowing around him as his ears could feel the vibration and sound of something approaching rapidly. The sound didn't trigger Raven's danger sense, but he began to tense his legs, trying to regain feeling in them. Several moments later, a woman's green body began to fly through the air, Raven's eyes widening as he noticed her approaching his body, her eyes tightly closed. Oi oi oi. Emily, don't be diving on an injured orc with a dryad cannonball. Raven forced himself to his feet, the dull ache now gone, as his legs listened to him, standing with his lower body in the horse stance, he spread his arms as her curvy body slammed into him. His arm wrapped around her soft buttocks, with one hand reaching out to catch her head softly as they twirled in several circles before finally stopping with a dust screen forming from their bodies. Raven noticed small tears painting her cheeks, about to wipe them away, her big green eyes opened, blinking several times as she saw his face. Emily's mouth opened, seeming to speak, but nothing came out, repeating the process as more tears began to pour from her eyes like a little girl. Raven. Are you okay? Please say you won't die and leave me. I was so worried, you know. She asked, like checking he wasn't a ghost or specter in rapid succession, her worry and concern evident on her face as countless flowers bloomed with each emotion and question she asked. This woman is so cute. That's me, my cute dryad receptionist. I have come back from the dead for you to stop crying. That when his cheeky reply finished, her face approached his rapidly, pressing her lips against his as she kissed him with a clumsy but passionate kiss. Emily held her breath and sucked on his lips passionately, her vines blooming a vibrant pink as they wrapped around his back. A soft oozing sap poured onto his naked body, removing all the dirt and dust on Raven before making him feel relaxed and more comfortable, as he opened his mouth, shocking her as he entangled her sweet tasting tongue with his, sucking on her with a rough and passionate kiss, deeply intoxicating the cute dryad in the middle of a dungeon. Their bodies slowly spun around as if dancing, entwined as he held her tightly, feeling a sense of happiness at the pure and passionate feelings she directed towards him. At the same time, his kiss caused Emily's mind to turn blank, her fluttering vines like a colorful festival as the succubi and fairies finally arrived at the strange sight. Chapter 32-32. Half Orc Reflects. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven's almond skin glistened from the fiery lights of the cavern walls while his muscular arms tightened around Emily. He couldn't deny feeling a sense of déjà vu, the warm embrace and passionate kiss, like the days he would come home in the past and be greeted, as the soft vines of Emily began to entangle and wrap around him gently, passing her warmth and feelings to his bare skin. I was so worried. It was all my fault. I should have told you. Emily began to say in a soft, whimpering voice as their mixed drool dribbled down her lips, her sensual pink tongue sliding over and lapping it up as if natural. No, it's something my mother mentioned, but I was too immature and excited to prove myself. Haha. He would never blame this cute woman, although they met a few times, her changes and feelings were noticed by him. In fact, from the moment they met, he felt something strange, just like Lilith when meeting her, but Raven continued to deny his urges towards both her and Lilith, still not ready for something serious. I don't want to make light of her passionate feelings. When I am ready, I should visit Phyllis. Speak to her and get some closure. Stupid. How can it be your fault? MMH. Emily seemed filled with a bright flavor and kissed him again, not caring about the approaching woman. This moment for her was magical. Her first kiss, the thick essence filling her body, caused her to flood with nectar and desire. Now half drunk on his powerful odor, even the scent of his sweat was delicious. The pair kissed passionately, the smack of their lips and tongues audible. Ow. Hey. You two need to stop that right fucking now, or else we're going to have one hell of a fight, orgy. Here, the short female succubus with her huge ass and plump tits growled at them, looking more annoyed than angry. Emily only looked to her direction, her soft lips sucking on the thick orc tongue that was toying with her month, treating her like a plaything as pleasure filled her body, giving the succubus a sneer as she snorted back. Zestria stood in her tight black outfit, her sexy curves on display, yet not once did Raven look towards her or their succubi team. His eyes were focused on Emily, never once looking away as they passionately kissed for another 10 minutes or so, his eyes only leaving her face and body the moment she rested her green hair against his chest. Ha. It's hard to breathe. I might die. Hee hee. Emily whispered in a sweet and sultry voice. Silly, just breathe through your nose next time, Raven replied with his magnetic husky voice. Next time. Yes. But my breath. What if it doesn't smell? You tasted like sweet berries. I could kiss you for hours. The pair stood together in a half-destroyed dungeon, a massive pile of blue bone dust and the broken axe, but there was no sign of the corpse. For some reason, all the succubi were forced to take a step back. Raven's body was currently like the most alluring cream cake, or chocolate to them, his body flickering and enveloped in his purple energy as it poured into the cute dryad whose body was constantly trembling as she did her best to hide the light orgasms she was feeling, the vines and branches on her body, forming bright pink flowers with a strawberry scent, oozing with a lewd-looking golden sap. Ahem. Zestria cleared her throat, even as the daughter of a succubus empress could still feel her heart beating faster at the mere scent of this half-orc, some of her subordinates already slipping fingers into their body suits, with flushed faces. Mr. Raven, I presume. Are you aware there is a rule against clearing the same group of monsters several times? She asked, forced to go through the procedure as her blue screen opened, a mini version of the Bureau's database, showing the image of the naked Raven standing as her subordinate took large gulps seeing his weapon. Emily also looked before whispering to herself, it got bigger. It's familiar, though. Before she could start to wonder more, Raven put her onto his left forearm, now like a dryad who belonged on his body, her roots and vines wrapped around him to keep her stead, as her plump ass was squished around his thick, muscular forearm. Emily's face bright red as the thick dryad sap began to seep from her underwear, smearing over his arm, yet Raven didn't say anything. L.RG, I was too hasty, ignoring Emily's advice, although I knew it was bad. I didn't heed the warnings, please accept my apology. His body bowed slightly with a look of repentance. He would never let a woman take the fall for him, if they were the cause, though, he would so they could learn from their mistakes. However, Raven was the one who decided to do this, he didn't know of her position, and she was a mere receptionist. What might happen if she lost her work was all he cared about as her attitude and aura tickled the outer layer of his heart. Ah. I understand, Mr. Raven. If I had known, then I wouldn't have said such things. Your punishment would normally be to help us clear out the monsters until tomorrow morning while we took care of the guardian that spawned. However, it seems to have vanished. Zestria knew he was covering for Emily, but he did so without even a second thought, and such sincere neon blue eyes won him her respect for the moment. Could you tell me what happened? Raven looked a little confused, his body standing fully, as Zestria barely came to his abdomen, her face close to his crotch that was densely packed with his aroma and the purple energy pulsing from the core. Guardian? He asked, unaware of the strange face and quivering body of Zestria. who used her entire will and superior level and power to try and desperately resisted the temptation to throw him down and thrust that giant arm like orc cock inside her. Ahem. Guardians are the monsters that the dungeon spawns to protect itself. We are not fully sure about the mechanics, but they only appear when a single group or person kills monsters more than twice. The exact number is random and can be anything between twice and 5 times, but the issue is that guardians will refer to the person who did this action as a poacher, targeting them for death. So that's why his name was like that. Can you tell me more, miss? Oh, forgive me, I am the head of the B.class Succubi Enforcer Team, Zestria the Succubi Princess. She greeted him with a cordial greeting but was forced to maintain distance as her loins were already on fire and dripping wet with thick nectar. Looking at Emily, she knew the reason for this woman's affection for the man. He was a gentleman and very polite. Not only was he charming, but he could accept their draining habits. Not once has he looked at my tits or exposed pubic hair. This man, he's amusing. I wonder if he could resist my top.class ass. Zestria thought to herself before fixing her posture. Where were we? They target a poacher to death. What does that mean? Raven asked, his arm feeling sticky and damp from the slight movements of Emily as she seemed to have an itch, as her lower body was grinding against his forearm. Although he could smell her sexual scent, he chose to be tactful for now, letting her quietly enjoy his arm. In reality, he wanted to swipe along his arm and taste the sweet, honey-like sap smeared along his almond skin though. It means exactly that, once a dungeon marks a person. No portals will work, and neither will safety talismans that normally teleport a person to safety, both external ones that take you outside and those that work internally, sending you to a previous room. The danger is not only for the poacher, but for normal dungeon users' thoughts. Why? Raven's look was severe. He didn't wish to have caused other people any danger, thinking back to his murder and their faces filled with terror, the woman's desperate pleas. The moment his mind was about to fall into a lonely dark abyss, this time it was not Lilith's embrace but Emily. Her soft vines wrapped around his body, pulling him tightly as a soothing scent filled his nose, her head leaning against his ear with a soft, gentle voice sounded in his mind. Don't blame yourself, there were no issues this time, even if you worry it cannot be helped. Instead, try your best in the future, look forward, not backwards, Alistair. I will be there to watch your back, slowly following your big strides, overseeing and protecting your heart and mind. That is what a personal receptionist does. Emily's gentle smile caused his heart to throb for a moment before it recovered, feeling the pink energy slowly seeping from her vines and body as his purple energy filled her entire body slowly, like a bottle under a tap on low pressure. Her voice seemed to be whispered into his mind, as behind his back, a strong bark of her twigs and branches seemed to physically resemble her support, as the woman in question continued to move her hips, letting out sighs of pleasure, her green eyes fixated on his face, with a warm and welcoming smile. Raven. Did you hear me? Zestria asked as he seemed not to hear her explanation. Sorry. It's been a long night, and I was dazed. Yeah. I can understand. Raven didn't notice that she smoothly dropped that Mr. from her address, now speaking more frivolously in close. The dungeon will become a single layer. Normally, each person's party will enter a separate dimension or small world to be simpler. Thus you won't ever find another person nor fight the same monsters as someone who isn't in your party. But when a poacher is denounced. Zestria closed her eyes, her face seeming to be a little solemn, her eyes flickering several times before she continued. All of the dungeons are fused, not only the poacher but everyone who is currently in the same dungeon will be trapped, forced to fight inside a dungeon where every monster's level is doubled, while the guardian can be triple or even 10 times the current level of most monsters in the dungeon. As you can imagine. For the adventurers who can barely clear a dungeon. Even the poacher themselves. She looked at him, showing a sense of awe and respect. The expected survival rate of newbies inside a poached dungeon is less than 5%, which decreases with the danger level of the guardian. the supposed survival chance of this dungeon was 0.6%. As expected of such a wonderful male, your luck and resilience are awe-inspiring. Zestria adjusted and could manage basic conversation as she moved closer before asking the main question on everyone's mind. So, Raven, can you tell us where the Guardian might be? We lost its signal near here for some reason, and letting them roam loose is dangerous. Raven began to laugh wryly, ruffling his hair before he looked at the succubus for the first time. Her beautiful face and tiny beauty spot below her soft red lips, an alluring and sharp face with golden eyes like the mid-evening sun as it set over the horizon. At the same time, her hair was beautiful, glossy and black like his raven axe. For the first time, his eyes slipped down to see her revealing clothes, almost showing her nipples and areola. They were that racy. Raven then noticed her face seemed victorious and pleased as he returned to her golden gaze. Do you mean that huge skeleton with that giant sword, flaming blue skull and helmet? Yes. Raven, so you saw him. Ah, the bastard was called Ragavad and almost killed me. So where is he now? Zestria excitedly interrupted, her breathing rough as she grasped his spare hand. Her skin was soft like a velvet cloth. He's there. Raven replied with a smile, pointing to the smoldering blue bone dust. Suddenly the entire room sounded with a collective word and sound. Chapter 33. Half, Orc and Forest Fairies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven looked at the strange faces of the women around him. The only one who didn't make a weird noise was Emily, who was still wrapped around his arm and just looked at him with her green eyes fluttering with a gentle smile. You killed the Guardian? Zestria asked, then followed up her question, what is your level? This Guardian was at least level 14. How can a new adventurer defeat it alone? He shrugged, unsure how to respond to their grand reactions. He just fought then fought harder until it was done. Ah, I'm level 10 now after killing it. Is there something wrong? Raven replied politely, feeling the slight tickle of the vine stroking and poking at his cheek, like a shy child who is too embarrassed to get the attention of the girl they like, so they poke them or do stupid things for attention. What? How? You were only Lev. MNNNNPH. Raven's finger silenced Emily's voice as he pressed it against her soft lips, stopping her from spilling his secrets. His eyes looked at her with an aggressive and threatening gaze. Emily's eyes widened before she seemed to realize what he meant, her sap increasing from his fierce look, causing him to only sigh at this perverted flower attached to him. Theta let's give up. This girl is like Phyllis, runs on her thought circuit, and won't stop being perverted if I tell her. If anything, she became moister after I threatened her. Damn masochistic women. Raven grumbled in his mind as a warm, hot sensation wrapped around his finger on her lips, now coiling around him as the dryad was sucking on his finger. God, please, why do you send these lovely and perverted women to my doorstep? A voyeur who masturbates over his face as he sleeps or sits on the couch using the videos of him and Phyllis. Now a dryad that is using his arm as a toy for pleasure. Ahem. Zestria finally recovered slightly from her shock, seeing the sincerity in his voice and face and the nod from her subordinate, which could detect lesser lies. Since you managed to kill a Guardian, I will change your grade in the system. It might take up to 24 hours to fully display. But you are free to refer one person and take them to the dungeon with you. Please avoid choosing a criminal or monster with a high danger rating, as you would likely suffer. Zestria thought for a moment, then added. Or maybe you wouldn't. With that thick essence. Raven nodded. He was surprised that the enforcers would be so easy to speak with, not aware that his purple mist also increased their affinity with him. It would never make them love him or anything that drastic, but instead allowed races like succubi and dryads to have a favorable impression of him. Lust and love were different, after all. Zestria gave him a rare smile. Even Emily stopped sucking on his finger, her eyes dilated like a cat watching the sun. She was known as the Stone Faces Princess by her company workers and the rule breakers she usually dealt with, from executing enraged monster girls to arresting those who mistreat them. She never usually showed more than a faint smile. Thus this full smile showing her soft white teeth shocked everyone in the room but Raven. He thought she was gorgeous and obeyed his mother's teachings. "You have a beautiful smile, Miss Zestria." Raven's words almost caused the entire flaming dungeon to freeze as all the women and fairies looked at him in shock. It was a known fact that Zestria disliked males, not because of anything wrong or some beliefs, but rather her own body that caused it. She felt afraid they would suddenly die, angry that they were too fragile. Her mother was lucky to meet a man with a unique talent and gave him high vitality, but it took days to recover. Zestria couldn't hope for that luck until she met Raven. Instead of acting like Emily and the others thought she would, her smile beamed more, her golden eyes flashing as she let out a soft chuckle, a light blush on her cheeks. Raven thought it might be expected for her to receive such compliments as she was the most glamorous woman he'd ever seen, beyond Phyllis in her makeup, and Emily was more of a cute and pretty type of woman. Ahem. Thank you, Raven. I hope you can spend some time consolidating your strength. Maybe you could visit my family's training center, a glorified gym that may be a little pricey. However, I could even offer personal training to help you release the pent-up anger and fury inside your thick body. Emily's vines tightened around his body, blooming with flowers that would typically send danger signals to predators. Yet Zestria ignored them, her eyes focused on Raven as he nodded, not seeing the hidden reason for her offer. He would still use his small gym, but with his newly found strength, he worried that the steel pillar that held the entire apartment up might eventually collapse. She has a point. If it's expensive, I can just work harder with Lilith. I have many shortcomings due to my lack of training. He wasn't arrogant with his newly found power, instead becoming more critical of himself, wanting to avoid becoming some brute force idiot. His mother always told him to use his head. Resilience isn't recklessness. Only use brute force when all else fails, or you have no choice. Her key saying was something like. Mother's saying was hard to understand back then, but my interpretation is that I should use my tough body properly, not fight blow for the sake of it. Even if it feels damn good to fight toe-to-toe with powerful monsters. Raven remembered his body's excitement when fighting Ragavad, ashamed that he was also feeling a sense of sexual arousal during the fight, something his mother always laughed about. This was a new experience for him and wasn't something he could easily laugh about yet, and he considered it seriously. Training with the highly seductive succubus might help him control his lust and reason during combat. Let's take up her offer. I want to start going to your gym. What days are you not working? I'll book that day for the next month. Let me know the price. Wow. Zestria was shocked. Her mother's gym was well known for being a brutal and dangerous place, filled with lust demons who could drain men to death in moments. They attended the training to control their urges, so they could drain a man's stamina slower, hoping to live happier lives with their beloved men. Like Raven's issue, his excess anger, ferocity, and sex drive never stopped growing due to his manticore heart. Emily's current actions were slowly diffusing the excess lust in his body as she rapidly absorbed his purple essence. At this rate, I'll open the second gate within a month. He thought, feeling the second notch of the gate was now March 4th complete with 8 to go afterwards. Emily was the most shocked, worried that Claudina's daughter would steal her hunky orc, but then realized she couldn't be greedy. Raven's body was too unique for her to hog to herself. She looked at the happy face of Zestria, seeing that it wasn't the look of lust but rather a look as if she had found salvation, a chance at happiness. Ahem. Okay, I will make the arrangements when we are finished here. First, could you add my communication number? For both the gym and if you are ever in a sticky situation, we are here to enforce the rules and help those who might be in danger, whether dungeon or Arcadia City related. Don't hesitate to call. Raven could feel this succubi's slightly nervous voice. The tough exterior seemed to be a sort of protective persona as she pushed out her left arm, showing her contact details ready to be exchanged. Thankfully, his didn't break when his arm was severed. As the pair exchanged details, her nickname set to Zesty with a heart where the dot of the I would be. He looked towards Emily, expecting her to pout, but her face was relatively calm, still refusing to release his finger from her lips, her little teeth nibbling on it, as her green eyes peeked at him cheekily. I will try to give you a reasonable price. Now then. Could you please allow the medical fairies to look at your body to ensure you have no wounds remaining from the battle? Hidden problems and internal wounds are dangerous, even for a big, powerful orc like you, right? No problem, thanks for the upgrade. He said with a smile, sending her a different message on the comm link. I am looking forward to some fierce 1.1 training together, Raven. To Zesty, I hope you enjoy my skilled movements and tight body. To Raven, Raven's message wasn't obscene, he was just a natural at teasing this succubus as she tried to hide the flush on her cheeks, taking his words to be literal and a sort of offer rather than him being into the training. Suddenly, a cute sound began to sound in the area. The fairies began to sing and hum as they fluttered around his body, a sparkling green mist slipping around it like a velvet sheet in the wind, a cooling sensation filling his body as they made cute sounds. A monster. Half.orc. Monster. Half.orc. Tasty. The tiny little women with soft bodies and colorful hair all clung to his body, each with a different tone. Still, their words were adorable and soothing to hear while each sniffed, licked and poked his body, arms and chest, climbed onto his shoulders and arms, sitting down and kicking their legs with blissful faces, seemingly unwilling to leave. Zestria watched as the ordinarily professional fairies began to molest and cling to Raven. Psycha, come. We have to go check for other possible casualties, Zestria said, her eyes slightly jealous, relaxing when she looked at the second message from Raven, no longer jealous. I cannot wait to meet you on Sunday. Raven, to Zesty, comfy orc, tasty essence. No leave. A pink fairy chirped, who seemed to be Psycha. Kind monster taste good. Taste good, kind and good. Good. Raven looked at the cute little fairies, Psycha sitting on his neck, her face kissing his cheek, with a bright smile as she hugged his face. He could feel her soft tongue licking his cheek because it was harmless compared to the Dyrad rubbing her now naked crotch against his arm. This was cute and harmless. Don't make me feed you to some goblins. Zestria snarled with a dark voice before grabbing Psycha's soft golden wings and dragging them away. Before leaving with her unpleased succubi companions, she looked back at Raven to see the dryad that was still molesting his arm, pretty much masturbating as the pink flowers were fluttering like a small forest. Be careful, these fairies and forest spirits are tricky and very obscene, and their proper form is taller and more lustful than the plant masturbating on your forearm. Chapter 34-34. Half, Orc and Feelings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Once Zestria left, it was a rather uneventful evening. The dungeon was finished quite quickly, with the succubi crushing the monsters as Raven and Emily left together, her roots almost wrapped around his arm like a tree, her pink lips humming a soothing tune. Emily, are you going to get down soon? You've already finished, right? Raven wasn't that fazed by her actions. He tried an elven female dog. This dryad wasn't much worse, only he hoped she would do these things in private in future. How did you know? Emily gasped, then leaned against his shoulder, her soft green hair brushing against his neck, as her large eyes peered into his. Raven stayed quiet, his right hand leaning over, reaching between her exposed thigh, the orc's large palm sliding over her warm and sticky pistol, causing Emily's lips to open and gasp with a loud and shocked noise. Ah! Her shock was painted on her face as his fingers teased and played with the silky petals that oozed with the thick sap before his finger entered a hot, sticky pollen tube. Her body convulsed from the thick fingers stretching the wet tunnel to his size. No, it's outside. The moment she said those words, a smirk came to Raven's face as he slipped out his fingers before loudly sucking the tasty sap from them, a delightful honey taste filling his mouth as Emily's mouth opened wide, her sap now licking by Raven's tongue causing her mind to explode. You are finally speaking sense. Emily, you are a wonderful woman from what I have seen, but please have some self-respect. We haven't even had our date yet, and you've already used my arm to orgasm. Get down. His words caused Emily's roots and vines to release him instantly, her body slipping from his now sticky arm, her face blushing red as she realized her actions were too obscene and forward. Raven saw her dejected look, giving a slight sigh, he wrapped his arms around her tiny shoulders, gently kissing the top of her green hair, the scent of melon filling his nose as his fingers stroked along her sad cheeks. Don't look so sad, you know about me from the database, right? I still have her in my heart, and my feelings towards you are still growing, but how can I say I truly treasure you if I carry her deep in my chest when we still haven't started to build our tale together? I was. Her eyes were slightly wet, and before they could even form tears, his enormous almond thumbs brushed across the base of her eyes. Emily, don't worry, there is no need to rush. You are my type, a wonderful woman that has almost swept me off my feet. Otherwise, I would never let you latch on to me, your race and age are irrelevant, there is no rush, and you can be at ease. I want to get to know you, fall in love with you, not fall into lust with you. Emily's eyes shone brightly, his words causing her chest to beat rapidly as he felt it was thumping as they embraced each other, standing under a quiet bus stop as the pitter-patter of rain and cars passing them sounded as their ambience and background music. I have many secrets, but my feelings and Phyllis. It will never be something I hide from you, the information states we met 8 years ago, and for 8 years, I loved her. Even now, she is important to me, but that chapter of my life is over. But I cannot rush. I won't ask you to wait forever because I am not some special man, a mere orc with my vices and weaknesses. Her hands wrapped around his back, a black car almost splashing her green body with dirty water, filled with filth and muck from the factories to the north. Raven's huge body covered and turned her away as his back was filled with sludgy and disgusting dampness. It's fine. Everything. No matter what happened in the past, what might happen in the future, even if you have other women. Visit that cow woman. I want to know. Emily's eyes were hopeful, the emerald orbs peering into his eyes with a penetrating gaze. What? Raven asked with a soft smile, his arms feeling her shy vines stroking his fingers and wrists gently, rubbing against him like a shy girl. Do I have a chance? Can I enter that big heart of yours? I am a dryad. I'll suck your vitality all the time. I love being perverted. You know. Emily began to speak with a rapid-fire voice, her breathing almost hyperventilating as his hands grasped her back tightly. He pressed his forehead against hers, the tiny dryad only up to his chest as he leaned down, a massive smile from ear to ear on his face as he found her too adorable that he couldn't resist it. We are having this conversation because you have already entered my heart. A small green seed, right in the depths, her little roots slowly forming as she germinates, helping the dark and bitter feelings slowly purify with her smile and presence. Ah. Ah. Is that so? I see. I see. Raven gave an amused smile, although his romantic tethers in this world were becoming more difficult and hectic, his mind and body changes after becoming a manticore were simple. Be honest to yourself, be honest with his women and accept everything if they can't. In this world, polygamy was widespread. Usually, female orcs or male orcs would have up to 6 partners, but his mother was happy with his father and became an odd one among her siblings, the same for the monsters that drained vitality, they would have a reverse harem just so their lovers could alternate and avoid their death. That's why he knew it wasn't a big problem for Emily, but he didn't want to start any serious relationships until he could speak to Phyllis without feeling regret and wanting to rush to her side again. Originally, Raven was a monogamous person, his love for Phyllis even now was a large part of who he was, but the changes to his body, the gates of bliss alone, would require him to have passionate and loving sex with 12 women at the very minimum. Not lustful and emotionless sex. He needed to connect to their hearts, and they to his. Thus Miriam couldn't clear the first gate alone, he needed a woman like Emily or his passion towards Lilith to break the first gate, but with time he felt that Miriam would become more than just a weekend's moment of passion and pleasure. Everything needed time. While he was thinking, Emily seemed lost in her thoughts, her flowers blooming randomly, at times happy flowers, sometimes sad, lustful or bright pink ones. Raven watched her in silence as she looked up at him with the weirdest smile. It was so bright and seemed like she had won the lottery or something, her soft hands tapping his chest as she began to cry, her tears pouring from her eyes. Tears of happiness as she rubbed her slightly wet nose on his chest. Luckily the Dryad's fluids were all sweet and like honey, otherwise, he might flick her forehead away from him and the nasty goo from her nose. Stupid orc. Why are you saying these words and using plant analogies? Are you trying to charm me more? Stupid. Huge cock. Idiot. Haha, that am I here? Inside your heart. My vines, branches and flowers don't disgust you. Emily's voice was filled with countless emotions as she lifted her hand close to his face, a small blue flower blooming from her green hand. He looked at the flower for a moment before gently kissing the soft blue flower, its pink bud fluttering as the flower turned a bright red, countless petals blooming from the flower as Emily turned red, even her green body was a bright red. You dumb Dryad. Why would I dislike these cute flowers? Each one is a part of you, your feelings, and show are how honest and lovely you are. What a huge cock, look at your massive ass, shaking it in front of me and making me like this. Raven argued with her, feeling a little rebellious. He placed her red hand on his crotch, causing Emily to gasp as the thick purple aura flooded her body while her gentle pink mist filled Raven. The light rain slowly faded as the pair stood in a strange embrace. It's huge. And so thick. She muttered as he felt a strange feeling flowing through his body. Crack. The second seal was broken. He entered the third stage of Gate 1. Filled with a slight sense of power, his body and muscles shuddered, tightening while endorphins rushed around his mind, causing him to feel great. He ignored Emily, who was now rubbing along his crotch with a more perverted smile than earlier. Instead, he placed his finger under her chin and softly lifted her face, which was fixated on his lower body. Her eyes widened as she took her hand away, worried he was mad. She was filled with a sense of regret and fear after finally reaching this stage, worried her caressing of his crotch might have affected his mood. Ready to apologize, his magnetic and sultry voice sounded, causing her mind to turn blank like a sheet of paper instantly. If you are not working tomorrow, would you like to have our date early, my cute Dryad Emily? Her mind didn't care if she was working. She nodded profusely as he suddenly lifted her off the ground, giving her a tight hug, before clasping her hand gently, walking towards the evening district. Although known for its adult entertainment, it was also home to the city's best restaurants and bars. The time was 8:03 p.m. as Raven's spare hand deftly maneuvered around his cell, booking meat at a reputable steak restaurant he had always wanted to try but never visited. Emily leaned against his arm, her branches and vines wrapped around his arm as she felt this was like some mystical dream. She believed if she spoke, it might end, as her green eyes fluttered and enjoyed the night air, guided slowly by Raven, who shortened his steps for her benefit as they walked together like lovers. It was a place he never visited with Phyllis and would remain a place he only went with Emily, no matter who else he might end up with. Le Relais d'Arcadia. This would be their signature date spot. Chapter 35-35. Dryad's First Date. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Author note. Because this chapter is more related to Emily's first date, her feelings and thoughts. The chapter will be from her point of view and how she perceives the date. Some differences between when Raven is the focus might be noticed, they are intended as it is how she sees him, rather than his self-reflection. Enjoy. Underscore 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 Emily found Raven extremely skilled at organizing a date. Like magic, she watched as he wrapped his rugged arm around her waist, his hands above her pelvis, gently stroking her as if to reassure and relax her. Are you cold? Raven's deep voice sounded, sending tingles down Emily's spine. The night air was a little cool, but she was able to adjust but nodded gently, worried he might think she was ignoring him. His hands feel so nice, I can feel his warmth spreading through me, I'm so excited. She thought, leaning against his shoulder as they walked along the pavement, the dark sky and shimmering stars as their audience. Not anymore, hee. Although she wouldn't mind if he held her ass or touched her more sensually. He grabbed her with a secure grip and firmly held her close to his body so she didn't need to fear falling or being bumped into, which made her feel secure. He even made her stand on the opposite side of the road to avoid cars passing them and splashing her with water or filth. Mother, forgive me for skipping work. But your daughter is on a date with such a charming, single orc. Phyllis, you silly elf, why give up such a wonderful man? The pair didn't take long to arrive at the restaurant. The walls were painted white with black outlines and an elegant silver cursive sign with the name in an elegant font. Le Relais d'Arcadia, a strange name, but Franzians make good food, I cannot wait. This dryad is no vegetarian. Emily wished to talk more, but her chest was constantly racing, the little motions he would perform, the subtle actions to keep her safe, warm even gently holding her vines off the ground to avoid people stepping on them. Should I hide them? I don't want them to get in the way. Emily whispered, her eyes looking at Raven's body with several vines around his body fluttering with pink, red and purple flowers with a soothing scent. The moment she spoke, his hand grasping her waist tightened while his free hand stroked the soft green vines, sending jolts of pleasure down her spine as she almost moaned loudly as they entered the restaurant. Don't be silly, your vines are both wonderful and charming, and they are part of who you are. Anyone with a problem doesn't deserve to admire your lovely face. She felt a little nervous, the way Raven was so skilled and comfortable made her feel slightly inferior, but Emily could tell even now he was acting gently for her, taking things slowly as they entered the reception. I'm so nervous it feels like my chest might explode. Ugh. Are my vines sticky? My palms are sweating. Do I smell bad? Her mind was filled with countless worries. Since she came from the reception, her dress was cute but nothing fancy like the human women sitting inside the restaurant eating fancy meals in their glamorous outfits. Emily thought Raven in a suit was the most handsome existence in the world, so she didn't think he would worry. Instead, she saw many women eyeing his crotch. A beautiful woman approached them with a faint smile. Her black suit and pleated skirt were very stylish and cute. Emily wondered if Raven might like her to wear one of these and bend down to pick up something for him. Raven greeted the woman with a natural smile, his body moving like a noble gentleman from stories. Thankfully, his hands slowly guided Emily's body as she gave a light bow, looking as elegant as he did. So nervous. Dear sir and madam, welcome to our fine establishment. May I ask for your reservation name and number? Grand Bell, VIP.1695. I apologize for my lack of etiquette. Your features were posted through the app, but we must double-check to avoid any mishaps, dear sir. No problem, please can you provide the things I requested in the booking? Raven's deep voice was a little commanding and magnetic, like a prince's. VIP. Things he requested. Emily thought to herself, shocked that he booked a VIP reservation and made requests, wondering if he had come here before with Phyllis, otherwise, why would he be so sure of their services? About that dear customer, as it's your first time, we were able to find all the requested items and the private room for you. Please understand that because you were not a member when you booked the table, we have added a surcharge which will be deducted the next time you dine here. Emily's brain was fried, and although her mother was important, it was rare for dryads to leave their tree. Thus, her mother typically had meetings, dinners and other things in the monolith where they lived together. So her experience with dining out, dating, and other everyday things a girl might experience was quite limited. Understood, that is completely fair. Do you offer a service for VIPs to book in advance or organize a regular reservation? Tonight is my first date with my girlfriend, and I'd like to book in advance with the same conditions as this evening. She heard him mentioning booking in advance, thinking he might take other women here, never thinking he would be referring to herself, getting a little envious until he referred to her as his girlfriend. Girlfriend. Me. Kaya. It's too fast, Raven. Maybe after a few more dates. Her mind entered a slight meltdown, her flowers blooming in brilliant and vibrant colors, almost filling the entrance with her parade of blooming flowers. We do indeed, sir. Let me check for availability. The hostess peeked at them with a gentle smile and chuckled before tapping the black electronic device in her hand. She was very polite in her manners and reactions. The price will remain the same, including the booking fee. However, we will no longer charge for your extra requests for subsequent visits. Instead, the 10% bronze VIP discount will apply to each visit. May I ask which day and for how often? The maximum time is 2 months as a bronze member, while diamond can book a certain night and table indefinitely. Emily thought this woman was an out capitalist. Taking money from her beloved orc prince like a mosquito, as she wanted to tell him it was okay, they could eat at her small apartment in the monolith. However, Raven's eyes didn't bat an eyelid. He looked at Emily's face and gave her a broad smile before his magnetic voice sounded. I'd like to book tonight for the next month at the same price and room. I'll pay up front and send the bill to my phone with the discount. My cute little dryad deserves this treatment at least. She looked at his kind face, wanting to tell him to save his money. She was okay with cup noodles, and her heart couldn't take being treated like a precious jewel. Somehow he seemed to understand her worries as his hand stroked her cheek, whispering, "It's fine, don't worry, your pretty face," into her ear as he leaned forward, kissing the pink flower that sprang from her hair from his actions. It's like he can understand my worries. Emily watched him moving away in a daze. His beautiful almond face seemed to improve each time she parted from him, but suddenly his hand slipped down to her buttocks, stroking her softly before he began to squeeze her ass with a caress that caused jolts of pleasure to tingle in her lower spine. Her little groan was almost audible to the hostess. Mr. Granbell, we cannot offer you tonight for the 2 months, but how is Wednesday evening from next week for 2 months and an additional discount of 20%, making a total of 30% for your inconvenience? Bulmo. Emily, is this all right with you and work? Around 9 p.m. every Wednesday. Raven's voice was such a matter of fact. It was amazing. To her, this wasn't something she could do. What if he disliked her? Or she does something stupid to embarrass him? Her mind was filled with countless negative opinions while her vines slid along his body, gently caressing and rubbing against his muscles. The hostess, this time, couldn't help but watch as her vines showed off the orc's massive, muscular body in great package. Work didn't matter. If her mother knew she found a man, she would give her paid vacation until she returned with countless baby dryads. Thus her heart fluttered, looking at his gentle eyes like he was making sure she was all right, worried that he had stepped too far. If you want to spend that much time with me, I would love to be with you. Ping, pong, instantly he swiped his phone across the black data pad of the hostess. Emily's eyes saw the amount he had just paid for her first date and the ones for the next month, feeling her heart beating rapidly. It was more than her monthly, close to her annual salary. The hostess smiled, and the digital receipt soon printed as the hologram shone from Raven's cell before another bell sounded. Congratulations. Alistair Granbell has been upgraded to Silver VIP. Enjoy a 20% discount on all food and a 10% discount on any wines. Book up to 4 months in advance with a 5% bonus discount each month. Total of 20%. If you are in a rush, don't worry. Once a week, you can visit without an appointment. Congratulations, Mr. Granbell, you have been upgraded. You are close to reaching Golden VIP with a single purchase and booking. How wonderful. Emily's mind was in a daze for the next 10 minutes. Raven helped her to the small private room in the back of the restaurant, overlooking a small garden. There were countless flowers and trees about 1 meter from the room. The actual room smelt of cedarwood and lavender. The seats were 2 benches against the expansive open windows backdrop, a lower table made out of what seemed to be black crystal as it shone with beautiful lights and colors reflected onto the roof. There's a message written. Emily said as she noticed small letters forming in the light on the ceiling. Here's to an enjoyable first date with my beautiful dryad Princess Emily and her charming blossoms and vines. Then a smaller message in small letters as she felt his body wrap around her back, 2 strong hands grasping her waist as she felt her eyes becoming a little blurry, not sure whether it was the sweet message, her nerves or her first date starting so wonderfully, as she leaned into his warm chest, no longer caring if the night ended here. I hope you will join me for many to come, Alistair Granbell XX. Raven's arms tightened around her waist as she felt his hands sink into her soft stomach, his hot breath blowing down her neck as she tried to hold in the emotions she felt in her chest, as her flowers began to swell and bloom with brilliant roses filling the entire room as her sweet scent covered the lavender and cedarwood, mixing perfectly as if he even planned that too. Emily, I cannot speak well, I've always struggled to express myself during these things. So I'd like to show you with actions. This won't be some fling or a short-term relationship for fun. When I am ready, I won't let you get away. Her head turned, looking up towards the man towering over her, his neon-blue eyes staring at her gently while his broad shoulders enveloped her. I'll wait. Be it weeks, months, years. I'll wait. Her soft green palms stroked his chest, looking up at him with watery eyes as small tears filled them. His fingers began brushing away her warm tears, listening to her shaking voice. His face was soothing and calm with a soft smile. Let's start now with slow steps, I won't rush you, let's find our own pace and timing. I might stumble and lose my way. Will you become my lover? Raven didn't answer, leaning down to her radiant face, illuminated only by the dim lights from the garden and ceiling reflections. Wrapping his huge hands around her soft cheeks, he smiled, before kissing her gently on the lips, no lust or tongue, a gentle peck as he pulled back slightly, their noses brushing against each other. A kiss means yes, right? His hard rod against my stomach means okay, right? Emily was about to move in for a second kiss, taking his actions as acceptance, her eyes closing as she felt like her chest might explode at any moment. Finally, she wasn't single. Her boyfriend was a super hot orc. Other women might come in the future, but she was the first. Phyllis didn't count, she was gone. He didn't say no. Yes. Stupid Zestria sending messages to my boyfriend, see if I don't teach you a lesson. He's so happy. Let's kiss. Then eat. Then. Knock knock. Emily's lewd mind was cut short. Instead, like a cold bucket of water, the door opened as a young man with a silver cart carrying several bottles of wine, some chilled, red or white, but sadly, the flowers on Emily's vines told the whole picture. Jet black, seemingly poisonous and deadly as her scent became like honeyed peaches, deadly but delicious. Chapter 36, Bonus, 36. Dryad's First Date, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Instantly the male looked at the couple, his eyes shifting to the datapad on the tray, realizing he messed up as it says in the large letters in the request section. Do not enter unless called with the service buzzer. His body began to shudder, feeling a strange itch all over it, the strange pollen blowing towards him rapidly as it began to envelop his entire body. Raven looked at the angry Emily, her eyes narrowed into slits, her green eyes almost glowing as she looked at the young man as if she wanted him to die. He quickly noticed the black flowers and spotted lotus growing along her vines pulsing towards the body and realized they were not deadly but would likely cause this poor human boy to miss work tomorrow. This girl is so easy to understand. Despite paying extra for this service, he looked at the young lad with a nostalgic look, remembering all the times he made mistakes when he worked to pay for his and Phyllis's studies. It's not worth making him suffer. Raven met eyes with the boy as he mouthed the words, "It's okay, you go take a break. I'll sort it." The moment he understood the words, the boy's eyes, which were almost filling with tears, widened as he smiled, bowing respectfully and turning to leave. Emily wanted to chase after him, but her body was held in place. The orc would let her forget this moment instantly. Quickly, while the pollen was only on his arms and cheeks, Raven wrapped his hands around the soft buttocks of Emily, who overlooked his actions until he began to squeeze the soft meat between his fingers, the large ass almost perfect for his orc hands to toy with. As he lifted her, her legs flailed as her flowers began to wilt and transform into the pink and red flowers shown when she was embarrassed. "Kaya! Alistair, what are you doing?" Her soft voice sounded no longer the grainy hoarse when she grunted towards the boy with her scary dead eyes. Now they opened wide, her face filled with a strange conflict ion of blushing and anger. Emily tried to struggle before he pinned her against the wall, holding her hands with his left palm above her head. Her face was now level with his, keeping the right hand caressing and teasing her ass, feeling her heavy body weight down on his fingers that began to sink into her soft, creamy buttocks. "What are you?" MMH. His grip became tighter, making her gasp as he softly pressed his lips against hers, pressing his thick tongue deep inside her mouth. He kissed her passionately, pushing aside any resistance or anger from her, forcing her to accept his kiss. It took several seconds before she finally relaxed enough to respond by opening her wet lips, allowing his tongue to slip through and lick along her moist inner walls, causing a shudder to run down her spine as she moaned lightly and gasped for air. Raven enjoyed the look of her green eyes, no longer glowing with harsh light and now filled with lust and bliss, her lips wrapping around his tongue as she sucked on him almost violently. Their kiss continued for several minutes before. Finally, her anger and displeasure became a distant memory. Now, the room filled with the scent of honeyed peaches and syrup from her thick sap oozing from the great kiss. Their tongues danced around each other's mouths, touching every inch of flesh and skin available to touch. They broke off their passionate embrace, panting heavily and smiling at each other with desire burning in their eyes. He continued to hold her ass with one hand, his muscles bulging, as he looked at her dreamy eyes and panting mouth, biting her bottom lip seductively, but he would not let it arouse him and set the fire of passion. Raven had self-control, at least at this moment. Additionally, it was time to eat food and not the dryad. "Come on, let's sit down, I've ordered a few courses, you can choose whatever you want to eat." Her voice was still a little dazed as he carried her over to the black L-shaped seat and placed her down gently, stroking her ass and thighs as much as possible before the warmth left his fingers. Tap. Tap. He pressed the button on his phone, requesting the entrance of the appetizers and for them to serve the wines that suited the dishes. He didn't want anything too fancy. Right now, he wasn't sure about her tastes and if dryads were allergic to any of the seasonings. While waiting for the meal to arrive, he sent another message to Zestria, but the table blocked the content of the message. A message sent. "So, how do you find the wine?" he asked, sipping his glass of red. It tasted sweet without being overpoweringly fruity, which meant it should be safe for her delicate system. There was a faint hint of dark chocolate. He specified red wines that had chocolate because he noticed her marble desk was filled with dark chocolate wrappers and so was her trash can. She smiled at him and raised her glass, letting the liquid roll across her tongue. "Very smooth, warm, delicious. You picked something nice." After a short pause, she added. "And thank you for choosing a wine that suits my palate. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you liked it. Now, shall we order our main course?" he asked again, watching as she drank the rest of her wine in 3 quick gulps. Emily began to shift her body, initially sitting across from each other, her butt squeaking on the leather material as she looked at him with her reddened cheeks, now almost sitting directly on his lap with her soft butt squished against his thigh. "Hee, do you want to taste my wine?" Emily asked, her fork stabbing one of the creamy potatoes as she stuffed it into her mouth. It was a little cool now, but the creamy taste of the goat's cheese and farmyard butter was divine. She was worried earlier that he wouldn't kiss her if she ate these, as they were filled with garlic, but then he made her eat one and began to kiss her deeply afterwards, causing them both to taste like garlic and cream. "Sure, if you have the confidence, I'll drink it dry." Raven never played around when it came to flirting. When speaking with Lilith and offering to sleep with her, he wasn't joking. If she had followed him, they would have had sex all day. "Wine. Emily said after swallowing the first bite. A slender vine, or rather what seemed to be something different, appeared near the mouth of Raven. It was soft with a slightly pink color, with sticky sap-like fluid oozing out slightly from the small opening. "Will you drink my sap?" Her breath caught in her throat as the appendage began to move up and down, moving closer to his lips with a slow, steady rhythm. The tip looked like a small mouth as it brushed past his chin and slid along his lips. The sweet but slimy substance dripped as his tongue began to flick towards the opening, tasting the viscous, syrupy liquid. His eyes widened as the clear liquid spread across his tongue and lips, his nose wrinkling as his brain processed what he'd just put into his mouth. It was sweet, like the most expensive and rich chocolate, but with a slight kick that caused his mind to feel shocked. It wasn't too sweet but made him want to drink more the moment his tongue directly began to taste the nectar from her pink vine. Her body seemed to jump, convulsing as she gripped onto the black seat tightly, and then her head buried itself into her chest as she gasped, green hair and vines growing almost everywhere, over the table, walls and out into the garden as strange flowers exotic and brilliant in color began to bloom. Each time he licked her little whimpers almost traveled to the other VIP rooms from the open window. Emily was slightly drunk. The bottles of wine were something she didn't usually drink. If she was at home with her tree, then the roots could disperse the alcohol freely, but now she was drunk. "Ha ha ha. You're such a naughty boy. That tickles." With a giggle, she pulled herself free from under his armpit, sliding her ass onto his thick thighs as her back leaned against his chest, the pink vine producing her sap rapidly pulling back into her dress, hidden from sight as she tried to recover her breathing, still trembling slightly as he wrapped both arms around her. "You should sit like a good lady, not on my lap," Raven whispered, realizing this successful woman was bad with alcohol. "Foo-foo, if you hate it so much, what's that club poking my ass? How about I let you pour your orc goo into my pistol, foo-foo?" "Pa." He spanked her buttocks before lifting her off his lap. Her face didn't show any dislike. She even lifted herself off the chair, so her ass faced him again, her dress now pulled up as it revealed her lack of underwear. "This damn dryad. Why is she so lewd? Where are your panties?" "Sticky and wet, so I threw them." "Where?" "In your item ring earlier. You let me put stuff inside, hee." "Why?" "So you can use them to masturbate later, foo-foo." Raven felt his brain hurting. This woman was a typhoon. However, he felt happy. He saw his reflection in the glass mirror, and he was laughing and smiling. All night since he entered and began this date with her, his smile and joyful feelings never faded. He struggled to feel this, even when going out with friends since he started having problems with Phyllis, forced to put on a fake smile. Yet, with this stupid dryad, whether being severe like an older sister or acting like a horny teenager, Raven realized that being around Emily was truly enjoyable. "Ah, I like this type of woman. It's probably my curse that attracts them. Quickly, drink some of this water, the main course will be here in 10 minutes, sober up." No, don't want. I thought you wanted to try a medium-rare sirloin with mash, garlic, and peppercorn sauce." "Boomf. Don't want." "Then what do you want?" he asked, his tone gentle and magnetic, almost trying to coax her into being well-behaved. Emily acted playfully, but her hands obediently grasped the glass of water, her soft lips wrapping around the crystal lip and drinking with large gulps, her body leaning against Raven's as she stroked along his thigh, stopping as it rubbed along his manhood. "Hey! I want this meat instead." Clack. This time, the door opened and saved him as her fingers reached for his zipper, using her vines to unfasten his belt with quiet nimble movements. Tisk. Emily clicked her tongue in irritation. Once again, the same lad from earlier came inside but noticed that the kind orc from earlier was looking at him with a strange look, like a savior, while the devil woman with plants growing from her was looking at him like she might kill him any moment. Chapter 37:37. To you who left my side, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Clack. The sound of Emily's heels tapping the pavement, her face pouting as she recovered slightly from her intoxicated state. Despite loving the steak so much, she let out a nasty burp before squealing like a pig in delight from the taste. After eating 2 kilograms of steak, she burped again and began to hum happily. Yet Raven could tell she was still angry at that poor boy for interrupting her. "Emily, stop rushing off, you forgot this." Raven scolded her deeply, holding her tiny black purse, which was super heavy despite being smaller than his palms. His voice caused the dreamy dryad to spin around and prance towards him, grabbing the bag and jumping up to kiss his cheek, obviously enjoying the sensation as she repeated the process 3 times before darting away, her hands resting on her butt. "Hey, did you not dislike me because I burped?" she asked as his pace soon caught up with her, wrapping his suit jacket around her shoulders and ensuring the neck button was fastened. He felt it was too cold and worried about the vines that withered in the cold. "Do you want the truth or the blunt truth?" he joked with a smile, wrapping an arm around her back. He noticed that during their meal, slowly, as long as he made her laugh, smile or generally feel good, the pink aura would enter his body. At the same time, his purple energy would pour into her. Over the night, she became more vibrant, her skin shiny and soft. "It seems women would kill to spend time with me in the future, he thought, watching the pretty dryad looking at him cautiously, his hands tickling his forearm as it rested over her swaying hips. Brutal truth. So I can get ready to cry alone with a tub of ice cream. Ha ha ha. Don't worry." He bellowed with laughter, their pace slowing as they walked down the cool night pavement, only a few hundred meters from the entertainment area. Thankfully they headed in the opposite direction, near the 24-hour hospital. She poked his forearm as if pushing for his answer, her face looked anxious and slightly embarrassed. Usually, she and her mother would eat alone. Thus, the 2 women didn't need to hold things back. Raven seemed to have made her so relaxed she almost forgot this. "Well. Well." Raven leaned close to her, the crossing light was red as they waited for the green man to show his face. His warm breath, slightly sweet and smelling of dark chocolate and wine, with a hint of steak. It was extremely erotic. "I almost threw you down and ravished you on that black sofa." Vulgar and relaxed women are very sexy. And then he watched as she became quiet, the green man showing as she gripped his arm, her bright face red as she tried to look away from him. Raven discovered that although she was strong when attacking, Emily had a guard of 0 when he flirted or teased her, sometimes more naive than Lilith. "The more time I spend with her, the more she reveals how compatible we are." Raven thought. When they reached the other side, he noticed a messy blonde ponytail flick across his cheeks as a female bumped into his and Emily's chest. Raven's reactions were far more potent than the past as he released Emily gently, his body moving forward like a gust of wind, wrapping his arms around the girl's body before his eyes and body froze the moment she fell into his chest, her green eyes fluttering wildly as her nose took a deep sniff of his body. "No way. This can't be happening, now of all fucking times," he cursed. Emily's watched the scene. She could have quickly helped, even her vines were ready to stop the worst situation, but Raven's movements shocked her. He was so fast, like a hurricane, before he held the woman tightly and froze. Eh? Why are you looking like that? What are those sorrowful and damp eyes? Raven. Who is she? Is that her? No way. How can my date with him be so unlucky? She lamented. Are you all right? Emily's gentle voice sounded, speaking to the beautiful blonde elf standing dazed inside Raven's arms. Her arms were initially against his chest but now wrapped tightly around his back. Alistair. Alistair. It's Alistair's scent. The elven woman whispered to herself in an almost obsessive voice, her face rubbing against his chest as Emily's voice was ignored. A strange feeling formed in Emily's chest. From the documents, they broke up because of an argument outside his company, that Phyllis wanted something different, yet watching this scene, Emily couldn't believe that for a moment. She could tell from the scent, the look on her face and the way she held him so tightly. Thankfully, it only lasted for a minute at most, as the woman seemed to regain her sense and back away, looking towards Raven, then Emily, biting her fingernails before bowing to them both slightly. I'm sorry. I was a little shocked and didn't know what came over me. Sorry, Alistair. I hope things won't get awkward for you and this pretty dryad. Don't worry about it, Phyllis. But you look as beautiful as ever, Raven said, being completely honest. He wouldn't change how he acted because Emily was present, and she knew how important Phyllis was to him and wouldn't change even if they dated. It's this. Emily suddenly realized what caused her to feel strange. Neither she nor the woman apologizing seemed to treat each other as enemies. Emily could feel that this woman, Phyllis Raven's ex, held no jealousy or anger towards her, even though she was still crazy about him. Alistair. The cute dryad is. The beautiful Phyllis in her smart work suit, black skirt, tights and jacket with her hair tied with a black ribbon looked towards Emily with a gentle and motherly smile. Nice to meet you, I am Emily. Alistair's girlfriend. She's become my girlfriend tonight. Raven finished as Emily's hands tightened, happy that he stated it honestly and clearly. The fact he acted so normal with Phyllis caused her to feel strange, but now she realized. He's just that kind of orc. Haha. The big bastard. I thought he might deny it. There was a slight tinge of jealousy when she first saw Phyllis hugging and sniffing Raven. However, when she realized how particular Raven's body was and who the woman was, all her strange feelings vanished. Instead, it scared her to be so accepting of another woman holding her boyfriend. She looks like a good girl. I hope you don't do those things to her too soon. She might break, Phyllis said with a whisper into his ears, but Emily could easily hear them. Don't worry, she seems the type to love that stuff, like you. You've gotten bigger and more handsome, you know. Did breaking up let you finally spread your wings? Your face seems so happy and shining, like your mother in the past when she spoke about clearing dungeons. Emily let them speak because she also learned about his past. Phyllis knew things that no amount of the Bureau's documents had. Well, thanks to you leaving, maybe. Also, thanks to this dryad's help guiding me to the right path. Look, I'm an adventurer now. Here's my card. Both women looked at each other out of the corner of their eyes, a slight shimmer as they smiled at each other, although there might be a touch of jealousy, maybe regret in each woman's heart. The moment the man they both loved began to speak about his new job, going into dungeons like a child who got a new toy and bragging to his parents, they both realized that even after knowing him for so long, Phyllis still didn't know everything about her ex-lover, and Emily continued to find new, adorably parts of his personality. So you got that title today, and to celebrate, you took Emily for a date and finally became a couple. Foo-foo, you never change. Phyllis moved deftly towards Emily before whispering in her ears, using a particular skill to limit the sound to one person. Even if Raven was standing with his ears to her lips, only Emily could listen. Congratulations, Emily, you will never regret your choice, especially as he's even bigger now. But there will never be another man that can fill the void he leaves both mentally and physically. Foo-foo, Phyllis spoke with a sultry voice as she looked down at Emily's lower body, causing both girls to slightly blush and giggle. Emily wanted to learn more about Raven and his past, even this soft-spoken and lovely woman who didn't show any bitterness or spite. There was no hate in her heart, even jealousy turned to peace as the savvy businesswoman avoided being too touchy with him after her first moment of weakness. Maybe it was because the affinity between elves and dryads was the highest globally. Beep, beep, oh. It looks like my sister is calling me home. She's so problematic. It's not like I am dying. It's something most women deal with in their lives. Phyllis muttered, looking at Emily with a wink before stroking her stomach. Phyllis stepped forward with light steps before standing on her tiptoes. He was now so tall she could barely reach his cheek, so she kissed him and darted into the busy crowd, leaving both Emily and Raven in shock. Raven stood watching as she vanished, not for too long but long enough to show his feelings and how strong they still were. Emily noticed that Raven's face was relatively calm as he turned to her, then showed a slightly apologetic look, causing her to feel amused. This guy, why was he so confusing before tonight? He was sincere with his feelings at all times. She moved forwards, her steps almost mimicking the ones used by Phyllis as she leaned up, the same height as the elven beauty, kissing the opposite cheek, which left Raven blushing and looking awkward. Her mind was filled with the final words that Phyllis said, "I haven't given up, let's take care of this silly man together, okay?" If they were to rekindle their love, I wouldn't get in the way. As long as he loves us equally. And doesn't mind dealing with a dryad and elf at once. Because Emily realized, from the very start Phyllis knew it was her fault he didn't spread his wings, he was too devoted to her and never saw his happiness merely enjoying hers, thus it made Emily's thoughts change too. I won't rush things, let's allow him to keep growing. Keep soaring in the air. If he shows signs of being tied down because of my love, I'll use my vines to tear those ropes apart. Never let him forget his passion and love for adventuring. Emily, are you all right? I feel amazing. You're not mad. She's lovely, there's no need to be mad. Haha. True. Oi. Your girlfriend is right here. Ah. Sorry. Foo-foo, I am joking. But why did she leave the hospital? This isn't the AE ward but the one for. Raven looked at her with a tilted head, unsure what the difference between an A East and this place was, but Emily realized. She realized everything. A bitter smile came to her lips as she complained in her mind. Damn elven witch. No wonder she is so relaxed. She has his first. Let's go, Alistair. She chirped, her arm wrapped around him as they moved back towards the entertainment district. You live the other way. Did you get lost? I know. Let's go drink. Chapter 38, Bonus, 38. Nenathrana. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Emily held on to Raven's hand on the way home. Instead of going to drink, she decided to go home. There was something she realized upon seeing Phyllis tonight, and she wanted to hurry up and get into contact with her. I want to know for sure and learn more about Phyllis and Raven. The way they both reacted, something doesn't add up. She thought, her fingers stroking the back of his muscular and rugged hands. She noticed that tonight if they went to drink, Emily might have lost her virginity of hundreds of years, but what was an extra night, or several? Her eyes also noticed that Raven's mood changed slightly upon meeting Phyllis. He was more assertive as if he wanted to reassure Emily, which made her happy, but she also realized that his words earlier were valid. He's not over Phyllis, and I don't know if I want that ending, now. I think. If she is as lovely as today, I can accept it. Let's find out more. About myself, my feelings, and if I can work something out with Phyllis and that strange life form coming from her stomach. Ordinary women might ignore these subtle hints, instead becoming controlled by their jealousy or monopolistic desire, but despite being a 400-year-old virgin, Emily was a very old adult. Thus, she noticed these slight feelings, emotions and changes in the two. However, she felt stupid for throwing away such a perfect chance and night to pop her cherry. It didn't feel right in her heart. Despite falling for Raven, some things were just more important than her getting laid. The pair stood holding hands in the reception area, which was private to Emily. The cafe had long closed, and the company workers of the day shift were gone. Now it was time to wait for the night shift who would start after 10 p.m. When they walked further inside, with their fingers entwined, two women were sitting at her usual desk, a beautiful woman with features that were 90% identical to Emily. Yet her hair was dark pink, and the flowers and vines around her were thicker and more powerful. The woman beside her was a succubus. It was Claudina, who Emily knew very well. Finally, after running away, my little virgin daughter returns. Oh. Excuse me, this is. Now revealed to be Emily's mother, the beautiful woman suddenly rushed to her feet, walking rapidly as if floating towards Raven. Emily tried to keep her away with her vines and branches shooting forward like a mass of attacks. Nevertheless, her mother's simple flick of the wrist turned the vines into a green pulp and a pile of brown sticks as Emily fell into Raven's muscular arms. Feeling her mother's assist was quite lovely as he began to caress her back and held her tight. She couldn't see, but Raven also turned his body, protecting her with his hulking orc back. As the mother stopped, a smile on her face as she saw her potential son. Law not fearful of her approach but turned to protect and also grabbed Emily tightly to his chest. Oh my, what a lovely boy! She swooned, the scary red flowers and black branches becoming beautiful pink blossoms and light brown roots as the succubus walked forward. Her presence caused the area almost to vibrate. Raven stroked the soft green hair of Emily, who was scared to be scolded by her mother, as she heard his deep and polite voice. Nice to meet you, I am Alistair Granbell. Currently, I have the pleasure of dating your wonderful daughter. I apologize, it is because I dragged her on a date that she left work for so long. I hope you can please let her off easily. Emily felt his body move as he bowed towards her mother slightly, still keeping Emily protected. Half-orc, almond skin. Granbell. Are you her son? She whispered. Is your mother named Morgana? The beautiful female dryad with pink hair is like autumn sakura. Her eyes were beautiful, a clear blue at times, emerald green at others, as she looked no older than 25, more like Emily's sister. Yes, my mother was named Morgana. Emily could feel the pride in his voice, her own heart almost throbbing from how magnetic and adorable her lover sounded. Claudina also joined in her eyes, looking at Raven, but once she admired his crotch for a few moments, she returned to normal. Her darling was waiting at home after all. I see, that little witch had such a wonderful son and never let me see you. Now my useless, drywood daughter is drooling over such a golden man. What a sad world we live in. Tell me, do you not want to try a fully blooming, mature and flourishing forest? Compared to that withering dull bush over there. Ah! Mother! I am fresh and juicy. He even tasted my sap. Tell her, Raven. The insult made her feel angry as she slipped from his grasp, pointing at her mother, who was a head shorter than her. She suddenly saw the playful smile on her mother's lips. Oh, Emily, you are so foolish. Do you want to make me pour raccoon piss on your tree? Mother, no. It'll make my leaves stink so bad. Mommy, sorry. I was wrong. But I won't let you taste Raven. Not until I have first. Oh. So it's fine after. Ugh. Mother, you are so stupid. I hate you. Emily quickly kissed Raven on the cheek before she began to rush to the back wall doors, her little vines swaying filled with countless flowers, while a single red rose was left planted in Raven's black hair as he smiled gently at her going figure. Thank you for the great first date. I won't forget tonight for the rest of my life. so make sure you see me tomorrow after you go to the dungeon. Fufu Raven kissed me, accepted my confession, no longer single stupid Zestria. Emily's singing could be heard well as she stepped into the lift, her vines touching her lips and flicking towards Raven as she blew him hundreds of kisses as the lift doors closed, her cheeks a rosy color as her excitement from the night began to fuel her adrenaline and hormones again. Ahem. Suddenly Raven was left with two boss-class MILFs. The succubi made his skin tingle while the purple mist energy in his body was almost sucked directly from the small core, now the size of a meatball, while her pink aura was flowing around her like a shroud as it began to seep into his body with a naughty and teasing impression. I hope my little girl wasn't too much of a handful. She hasn't ever taken an interest in a boy before. But to think she took notice of you. Well, my promise to her is half fulfilled, haha. You're not even kidding. My daughter messaged me tonight that she no longer needs to visit the pseudo-energy checkup because she found her Prince Charming. I cannot believe it's the same damn guy. Haha. Claudina laughed as she hammered the back of Emily's mother with a resounding thud while the red vines began to punch the succubus with huge fists made of vines, sending her body crashing into the wall meters away with a loud bang. Ignore the slutty old woman. Do you prefer Alistair or Raven? Any is fine. Could you please tell me your name too? It feels bad calling such a beautiful young woman Emily's mother. Raven wasn't particularly trying to flirt with her, he just felt awkward calling her mother, as she was short. Youthful and felt more like a little sister type to him. Oi oi oi. Don't be flirting with this old woman. Don't be fooled by that Gaku. Before Claudina could finish speaking, she was once again crushed like a fly against the cafe wall, large cracks forming but quickly repaired as the female succubus was twitching in a deep crater. Now then. I am so beautiful and young. Oh my. Such a strong. Big. Thick. Orc is telling me that I might steal you from my cute daughter and suck you dry. Fufu Raven felt this woman was like Phyllis in the past, who used to talk tough, but the moment she saw him naked and they had sex, she became obedient and often acted strange. I wonder if this woman is a masochist. Raven almost forgot the lustful feelings of the manticore heart as he spent most of the time absorbing and exchanging his energy with the girls he met. Nevertheless, the amount of energy created because of these two women caused his lustful and honest desires to leak a little too much. Oh my. Your thing looks a little tight. Should I give you a hand? Or maybe my vine? That won't count as cheating, right? My name is Nenethrana, but you can call me just Nene. He could feel her red vines stroking along his body, they were more violent and forceful than Emily's, but he grasped them, all five in his hand and yanked them towards him. Nene's body stepped forward as she landed a step away from Raven, who then stroked her pink hair with a soft rub. Huh, what a wonderful mother, you two are just alike. If you want me to sleep with you, wait until Emily is okay with me sleeping with you both simultaneously. Phew. Nene exclaimed as she felt his strong hands, easily able to hold her head, sliding over her silky hair before he cupped her chin with his thumb, her soft pink lips glistening as if covered in gloss. Did you just hit on your girlfriend's mother at the first meeting? Are you sure you don't want to race change to an incubus? I know a good guy. Claudina joked as she saw a rare blush on the face of Nene. Not many males dared to harass a monster with a danger level of SSS plus sexually beep, beep. Raven's phone buzzed with a message. Where are you? I'm so hungry. Please feed me. From Lilith, attached was a picture of the cute almond-skinned beauty naked, with her hands pushing her breasts together to make a sexy cleavage while stroking her stomach on the sofa. He replied, telling her to get dressed and stop being a wastrel. Since she was complaining, he decided it was time to leave. However, he temporarily took advantage. He knew if Nene wanted, she could pin him down and suck him dry, load after load, and he would never stop due to his cultivation technique and Manticore's heart. Ah, well, Nene and Miss Succubus, I'll be going now as I have someone to feed at home. Forgive me for not bringing a gift. Next time, I'll bring you something, Nene. Without giving those two old women a chance to pull him back, Raven fled for the safety of his nuts and their health. As he vanished into the night, Claudina and Nene watched his back, no longer looking as stupid as before. How was his energy for you, Nene? What about you, Claudina? Were you trying to drain him fully? Yes, I was trying to drain him like those guys who attempted to kidnap us back when we were younger. He didn't even flinch. Or rather, I could feel he was also taking my excess energy into his body. He's special. Just like she was. Is it a good thing our daughters have our good taste in men, right? Haha. It's not just that, Claudina. The moment he touched my vines, I felt instinctive fear. The fear a monster who meets a higher danger level feels. My son-in-law. Is. I am going to make him my man. Nene said, her blue eyes sparkling as she watched the boy rushing off. You'll make your little girl cry. It's okay. He seems to like the idea of a threesome. Now convince Emily that I'll help her capture his heart, Fufu. Victory for everyone. Let's watch them first, don't ruin her first love. You saw how happy she was. Finally, we can stop worrying you will never see a grandchild. Claudina teased. Oh, speaking of that. My old priestess said her granddaughter was pregnant. It is a miracle after being deemed infertile at 19. You mean? Wasn't her name Phyllis? Ah. To think it was an orc seed too. What a strange coincidence. Nene laughed, her eyes narrow as she winked at Claudina. They both turned to the monitor's screen on Emily's desk, and the tall figure of a beautiful brown-skinned female orc stood with a sarcastic and confident face. Hey, Nene. I just got this weird tingly feeling. Me too. You don't think she, did she? The pair spoke simultaneously as they realized their daughter-granddaughter and the other party member of their old team were now likely dating her only son. Imagine a 70-year-old orc being so damn smart. Claudina sighed as they began to click through the various old videos and files Raven couldn't see due to his low rank. Will you tell him the truth? I will. When he is powerful enough to accept and change his fate. They won't like her son rising. It will be tough. I know. That's why. Nene began to type into the database, slowly deleting all information that connected her son-in-law and his mother, making the Raven account completely irrelevant and making his name, background and birth fabricated using real people and words. Luckily they were all her close friends and owed her favors. Her body began to change, no longer the small short stack, but a tall, buxom lady, her face beautiful and alluring, beyond Claudina beside her. This form couldn't be used generally as it radiated pheromones and pollen that would cause males to go crazy with lust and affection. She was a walking aphrodisiac due to her high energy levels. But right now, there was nothing, only her beautiful form, as she looked at her own hands with a smile, feeling free for the first time in over 200 years. Nenethrana. Your aura. Pollen. It's gone. Nenethrana turned towards Claudina with a smile, her hands touching the keypad without even looking as she began to make way for Raven's rise, not too obvious but making sure he would interact with Zestria more often and form more bonds with other daughters of powerful monsters that needed his ability desperately, from vampires to nymphs. That's why, Claudina. Your alluring aura is also dimmed. He might be the key to a future where the most dangerous monsters are not confined to these monoliths and made to serve as the guild masters, only a glorified title for being slaves. Her eyes became vicious with a dark red glow, matching her vines as she wiped all the history and data of her changes from the entire system, because until she sent the whole week's data to headquarters, it remained in their server. She turned to Claudina, who shuddered from the powerful aura that began to pulsate from Nenethrana, who stood up, walking towards the exit with her pink hair fluttering like a branch in autumn winds. I'll protect their happiness. Chapter 39. Manticore, 1, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven's shoulders felt heavier than before as he walked along the dark and cold business street. For some reason, he didn't wish to take the bus. There were many things today: the battle with Ragavad, dating Emily, meeting Phyllis. He pulled his phone from his pocket, the bright light from his screen giving him some extra sight as he saw the countless messages from Lilith. They started angrily, but slowly they became more mature and obedient. The final message. I miss you, please come home. X, from Lilith, with a small picture of a slightly burned egg and bacon with rice and toast. Somehow, the image caused his chest to ache. He was having all this fun, and the girl that only had him in the entire world was eating alone in the dark. No. She wasn't even eating, Lilith was waiting for him. And I was avoiding her on purpose. Raven thought. I am coming, rushing to you. Please wait for me. To Lilith, he replied, putting the phone away solemnly and gazing into the distance. Let's go home. His steps increased pace, he quickly began to break into a rush. The unused level.ups were all distributed. Attributes, average equals 1, strength. 4.3 agility. 2.3 stamina. 5.8 vitality. 6.5 intellect. 3.2 wisdom. 3.4 not to fight monsters, not to become stronger. Raven just hoped and desired for them to help him get home faster. Tap, tap, thud, his legs began to swell, the pain he felt when leveling up several times causing his teeth to shudder and rattle, but Raven continued running. He began to think of the past week, the past month, losing Phyllis over his stubborn thoughts, meeting Lilith and taking her in, becoming an adventurer. A manticore. So many ideas as he remembered the scent of Phyllis, her soft body as she held him, tightly grabbing onto his back as if she never wanted to release him. How could his heart not desire her touch? He wanted to call her back. Ask her to come home with him. His life was changing so fast that he could barely keep up with the day. But what about Emily? What about Lilith? I feel like the worst type of trash. A murderer. Wanting his cake and eating it. Raven felt like the dark city streets, neither cars nor people soothed his mind as he rushed from the distant business district to his home near the slums. With each step, his thoughts and feelings clashed. I want to be with Lilith and help her find her desired future. Make her smile, like the manticore on the mural. His heart beat faster as he thought of her. The purple energy surged as if synchronizing with his thoughts, the dark shows and streets becoming brighter as his neon eyes vividly shone with a bright blue light. I want to make up with Phyllis. But not lose my new life. The selfish truth deep within his heart caused the organs of his body to become filled with the pink hue absorbed by the women at the bureau, his speed seeming to increase further as the third seal of the second gate was broken quickly. Raven's breath seemed to have a purple hue as he was running at a full sprint, now 2 times faster than the average person. Only 50 minutes, and he would be home. That cute girl waiting wouldn't be sat alone with that cold food. I am selfish, greedy and arrogant. I want Emily to be beside me, never to leave. I want to have sex with Miriam repeatedly, never letting another customer touch her again. His desire for monopoly, feelings of lust, greed and sense of pride and arrogance seething as his lower body began to form dark purple scales. His feet hardened, becoming hard like stone or a bull's hooves. That cute demon fox. I want to taste her. Make her scream my name. Raven shouted into the night. He always held back, whether it was his parents, friends, humans, or even Phyllis. He wanted them to be happy and make sure they were proud, but it wasn't enough. Inside he always felt something wasn't right. This isn't me. This isn't my life. Now the manticore's heart was running on overdrive, the constant fighting, his encounters with a present and past love, and the strong women caused his young, unawakened manticore blood to boil. No longer could he smile and say lies, just so the other person didn't feel bad. Nor could he pretend that working a tedious dead-end job made his day worth it just by seeing her face. His breathing became rough, now in a place he didn't recognize. The lights around him were dark as he stepped forward, leaning against a tall building, panting desperately, clenching his hands as he was frustrated at his feelings. So selfish and arrogant. But he wanted them and everything, and he no longer knew if this was just the manticore in him speaking. Or was it his will from the start? Would they hate him, desert him if he spoke the truth? That he wanted to have his cake and eat it. Stupid. Raven whispered into the void, taking deep breaths, thinking to all these thoughts, his skin pulsing with pink and purple veins, while his nails were warping into claws, eyes now brilliant blue with slit pupils. He slammed his hand against the wall, the brittle brick set for demolition collapsing with a rumbling boom, Raven's feet once again thudding as he rushed back, the image of Lilith now dominating his mind. It continued flashing like a warning and ultimatum. Monster. That's what he was. A void sounded in his head, like his own but shrouded in darkness, distorted like a beast's. If you don't feel good enough for them all, then become a man great enough that they can only look up to. If you want to hold Phyllis again, then sweep her off her feet. Make her love me again so crazily that she can never leave again. But I won't abandon Emily. I will be honest and tell her my intentions and how I feel. With time, everything can be achieved. If you want that manticore girl, the minotaur and the demon fox, take them, make them fall so deeply in love with me they cannot escape. The voice faded into the darkness as he realized he was only a few minutes from home, his body filled with sweat, the walls around him filled with sharp claw marks, and the pavement with deep hoof prints. For a moment, he thought he saw a violet flash, a pair of eyes watching in the darkness. Even his dark vision couldn't penetrate that strange fog surrounding the path to his home. Could it be Lilith? Did she leave the apartment to wait for me? Silly girl. So cute. Raven's mind seemed to get more precise the more he argued with that voice, the less he hid the thoughts and desires he held. Even now, he wanted to fuck Emily, take her back to his place and make her addicted to him. He could barely contain himself with Lilith. How could he not eat meat that threw itself into his lap? A sudden sound like a stone was kicked sounded from his side, now surrounded by tall apartment buildings as he was only 5 minutes at most. His feet stopped. There was something here. His instincts screamed with conflicting thoughts. One told him to flee, get away as fast as possible. One urged him to enter the darkness. She was waiting. Who is she? Lilith. I cannot keep her waiting. Raven thought as his feet moved towards the slight sound where the rock was kicked. Raven's half-transformed body began to lumber towards the strange murky darkness, slight ripples in the dark as if something was standing there, watching him, its body swaying, maybe dancing. Why did his body feel terror and arousal at the same time? Could Lilith do this? It smelled sweet. He tried to pull out his phone, but a flash of black burst past his hand, the phone slamming onto the ground, as suddenly it began to play a melody. The Pianist's Lament. Prelude. The melancholy and macabre violins and cello began to serenade his ears, a sense of foreboding beyond that of Ragavad as he stepped further into the mist, a small voice on the wind, gentle and soft, beckoning him to come closer. You're finally here. I finally found you. You cannot hide anymore. Each time she spoke, her words were in sync with the haunting melody, the pianist's lament playing the part where he even seeks to make a pact with the devil to meet his beloved again. My mate. Purple eyes shining in the dark. It was Lilith, only she had those beast-like eyes, those strange runes and slit pupils. I have waited millennia. Eons. Did you enjoy your time beside her? The fake queen. Fake queen. What is she talking about? Raven wanted to find her, but the further he entered the mist, the more desperately lost he became. the sound of her voice and the melody now wrapping around his mind as if it was all around him. That happiness was mine. You were supposed to be mine. Before he could understand, a sudden figure lunged forward, both corporeal and ethereal, as if she was here but somewhere else. Black hair, glossy and pristine like the void itself, forged each strand. Creamy white flesh, as if made from the most wondrous and divine nectar and milk of the gods, shiny and smooth, not a single blemish or mark. Amethst eyes, radiant and glowing like miniature stars watching him with a gentle yet ferocious look, all sense of humanity missing. A long black tail with the scales of a dragon, the stinger of a wasp and lion-like fur around it, swaying in mid-air like a murderous tool of death. It was Lilith, but not. "Hello there, my dearest husband." The woman's face was distorted with a twisted emotion, neither love, lust, hatred or anger. It was like all of them were mixed. Raven's body began to scream, he must flee. Escape, no matter how inelegant and pathetic he might seem. Yet he stood there. Watching. "You will not flee. Despite shaking so much, your teeth rattling can be heard from here." Alistair Granbell. Her voice was mature, her body mature, different from Lilith, too different. She was eerie and creepy, his skin was filled with goosebumps as she approached, her smile causing him to feel only despair. How did it feel? To awaken my gift and not hers. That pride. That desire. It's not something that a fake can give. We've met once. Have you forgotten? Your body holds half my heart. Her head tilted, it would be cute if not for her contorted face with only a freakish look. Your gift. He finally managed to force his words out, and instantly, the pressure receded vastly as he now got a better look. It was like the void moved away, feared her. A tall woman, close to 6 feet, identical to Lilith, but their colors and mannerisms were the opposite. So similar it was eerie. Her lips showed a genuine smile, no longer twisted and strange as if his mere words were enough to make her smile happily. The girl then pointed towards him as he looked down. Scales, hooves, talons, huge bulking muscles, and 2 massive horns seemed to grow on his head. Like the monster in a game he once played, something called a behemoth from Last Fantasy VII. What? He knew he was a chimera and changed, but what was this form? That damage from earlier, did his body create that? Because of his extreme desire to return home to Lilith. You look so handsome. Now, will you come with me? I have been waiting for so long. I cannot go there. You have to come to me. His hulking body stepped back, the sense of his mind was no longer split like some fog was gone the moment he entered this place. The instant he did, her face distorted, her body becoming monstrous as she started to howl and wail, a strange but bestial cry. Don't go back to her. I will never let you live. You are mine. Raven didn't move further, his eyes narrow and watching this creature. He realized that it couldn't force him to do anything, nor could it force him. Raven needed to come with her willingly. But he chose not to flee. Tell me, why should I follow you? I don't even know your name. Suddenly, her mouth opened, a row of sharp teeth formed an eerie smile that matched her lovely face. It caused a strange contrast that created something Raven couldn't deny. She was a monstrous beauty. Little birdie. Little birdie. Will you die just like your mother? The voice was like a strange song, melodic and matching the interlude of the pianist's lament that played in the background. I am the one who creates. I am the one who destroys. I am the first. I am the last. The mother of all manticores. She who devours all. Her body twirled as she gave him a light bow, her face now the spitting image of Lilith when she greeted him naked each morning, trying to push his buttons, but this woman. She terrified him. Eve. Chapter 40, Bonus, 40. Manticore, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Raven's body twisted, his heart racing as this woman could see into his soul, knowing his thoughts. This woman. He began to recognize her, the strange images from the mural, the rejected manticore. Her brutal and evil method of devouring the essence of both men and women without a care. Yet his mind also remembered her torture. The things they did to her, no longer a mere black painting on the wall, he could see her. See Eve being tortured, begging for help, asking where he was. Desperately trying to endure before she broke as a porcelain doll dropped on the floor. They wanted to use Eve. For what? The question echoed within his skull as he stared blankly at her, unable to answer himself. But he knew, and he felt sick. For a long time, neither spoke nor moved, leaving the silence to fill this writhing void, her eyes strange, glowing purple lights watching his weird changes. The distorted song ended as she realized he was spilling tears down his cheeks, his monstrous face, like a demon, yet those neon-blue eyes looked at her, they were gentle. The shadowy figure tried to move back, her body pulsating and quivering. What are those tears? Why are you looking at me with such a face? Don't look at me that way. She screamed and lunged forward, grabbing him by the neck and squeezing hard, crushing his windpipe in her grasp, the bones of his neck squeaking from her force. Her fake smile now distorted into a twisted and sorrowful face. Eve couldn't read his mind, she just knew his thoughts the moment her blessing and bloodline entered his body. Anything after that point, she could only guess and entice him with half-truths. Her fingers were cold, like a lonely glacier in a world of molten heat, floating alone in her sea of darkness, the marks of her torture still visible when this close, stitches. Thick and black ripping and tearing along her flesh even now. Now wearing a distorted smile because of their cruel torture, forcing her to swallow nails and slice her mouth open wide, like the slit-mouthed woman, gluing the flesh together. When he saw her broken form, he thought of Lilith, but unlike Lilith, this woman had been tortured beyond recognition. As if her body had melted away, but the scars remained a reminder of their cruelty and formed the current Eve. His eyes burned with hatred, his hands shaking with rage, he grabbed her wrists and squeezed until the pain became unbearable, her grip loosening slightly as he forced her to release her death grip upon him, his eyes watering from the pressure. Eve's eyes widened as he shouldn't be able to move or touch her, as he lifted her hands over her head. Raven's height in this strange monstrous form was over 7 foot tall, as the 5'11" Eve was lifted into the air, her body swaying as she looked up towards him, her face no longer showing emotion, a broken porcelain doll's emotionless face. Now what? Her sultry and deep voice sounded, those soft red lips broken and filled with scars as she looked at him with golden eyes. She was no longer pretending to be Lilith, or rather, unable to show the false look to confuse him with their bodies touching. As she gazed at him, she felt a sense of calm wash through her, a strange energy began to flood her body as if he were pouring a brilliant, warm light into her chest. Eve could feel her broken body begin to feel a tingling sensation, the damaged nerves. Her destroyed organs all began to repair, slowly. Feeling a tickling sensation in her chest, stomach and thighs as her eyes widened, huge black pupils staring at the beast facing her. What are you hoping to achieve? Is it fun to reveal my true form, the disgusting shell of a once beautiful queen? She became limp, swaying to the side, the sensation inside her body still raging as the purple energy began to swarm through her body, flooding her muscles and flesh. The wounds of old were healing at a visible sight, and her clouded yellow eyes became brilliant golden orbs filled with vibrance and obsession. Ha 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 ha. She opened her mouth, releasing a high-pitched shriek of delight as the skin covering her face began to restore, the scars on her lips, the wounds from their torture all began to vanish. The more he overworked himself and pumped her with purple energy, the more her changes became apparent. While he poured energy into her, a thick, almost liquid pink point began to move into his body, something far denser and more powerful than he could withstand. A single drop caused his skin to crack, his purple scales broken with blood seeping through the gaps. his powerful muscles tensing and convulsing as blood oozed from his nose and eyes. Ah! Ah! She moaned, drooling as she felt his thick energy filling every inch of her body. Her entire figure finally changed, no longer a complete image of Lilith. Still, they looked familiar, close to sisters, with Eve being older in her atmosphere and look. Ha. Raven began to exhale, no longer the distorted voice of a monster, as the void around them began to tremble with her body, the stars and moon shining from above as the mirage-like dream started to fade. Long silky black hair swayed in the dark void, the strands glistening as if crafted by the gap. Yet, now they were softer, cascading on her body as she looked down at the colossal beast. No, to the beautiful man with almond skin. His figure was now Raven and not the strange monster, blood covering his broken flesh, the torture wounds and scars filling his chest and body, as the existence known as the first manticore trembled to her very core. Why? She watched as he looked at her, with his broken, bloody smile as the wounds slowly healed, but the scars of his body remained even as they were healed. He was different but not entirely gone, he was still there. But why? What did he hope to gain? Did he think he would return to life again after dying twice already? Eve couldn't understand. This man was her fate, once again reborn for the first time in eons. Since that fateful day, her dungeon appeared in the wrong timeline, world, and life. Eve would be born, then suffer tragedy, her skin, body and insides damaged, sometimes becoming a disgusting monster, others a deformed humanoid. How many times will she have to suffer the same fate? How many lives must she live through this hellish torment and suffering before her accursed curse is broken forever? She used to think that, looking at her disgusting body, no matter how many times she was reborn. No matter the world, the time. No, this isn't right. This isn't how it's supposed to be. She couldn't accept this strange occurrence. Why was he the one now scarred? Why did he take the suffering and pain from her body? Now free to breathe without pain, but why did she feel no happiness seeing his tormented form? See. Now look at how pretty you are, not using another's form. A strange voice cut off her thoughts, causing her to blink several times. She turned to a young woman with dark brown skin. Her beautiful body shimmered under the pure moonlight as if with each step she took, the void began to recede. Standing next to him, her hand reaching out to caress his cheek, smiling gently. It hurts me too, dear sister. To know our beloved has suffered so much. Lilith. Those words seemed to echo across the void, echoing in his ears as he shook with fear. Her nightmare returned. Lilith was dead. Reincarnated countless times, reincarnated endlessly. Her twin sister. The one who was supposed to become her support. But instead took her place, became the beloved first. Reborn beside him in the first life. He, the only male manticore ever to exist. An experiment of cruel rituals and sacrifice, but Lilith became his betrothed, became the beloved manticore empress. And now, here she stood before him, alive and well. Her nightmares came to life, her worst fears made a reality. If Lilith was resurrected, standing beside him, what place was there for her? Who should be the first manticore? Was this fair? Was she cursed to relive the same horror over and over again? Will her heart break for eternity, living out a horrible cycle of despair and misery? Big sister. Lilith tried to speak, but suddenly Raven's body struggled forward, blood oozing from his body, but his eyes were different. They began to glow with deep blue light, his pupils now slits as they locked upon the figure of Eve, her solitary body hovering in the darkness. She returned to the mature form of Lilith, her eyes shining as they watched him with confusion. We can't continue like this, Lilith. Me of this life. He wants to save you both. No, if you do that. It's fine. Alistair is our name this time. Well. Your feelings of compassion. The screams of your heart. I will leave everything to you, me from the future, that wishes to do what I was too scared to do. The voice was distorted. If Raven were conscious, he would know it as the voice encouraging him to follow his desires when running to meet Lilith. Must you disappear? We've waited so many years to be reunited finally. I don't want this. Lilith begged with a voice filled with sorrow. The former reincarnation of Raven, also named Alistair, stopped his steps only a few inches from Eve, her body now trembling as she realized who stood before her, no longer her haughty self but a quiet and shy girl filled with a sense of fear. Alistair turned towards Lilith, his face a serene and solemn look. How many times have we been reborn, each time doing the same thing repeatedly? But. No buts. Me of this life. His heart is so pure. So accepting. Have you not seen how wonderful he is compared to the past ones? That's true. But he is not you. Enough, Lilith. I am not discussing with you, this boy. I cannot compete with him. He is far more than I could ever wish to become. No, you are special. Why must another man take your place? Do you not remember? Eve. You remember, right? Eve's face lifted, her eyes filled with terror upon seeing the aura of Alistair's body, no longer the beautiful purple light that made her feel warmth and joy, but the cold icy blue atmosphere. It made her remember those days. Alistair turned back towards Lilith, his smile wry after seeing Eve's state and feelings, remembering the horrific things he did to her. Lilith. Do you not remember the one that tortured and killed Eve? Was me. His body spread its arms, the broken flesh now pristine and almond-colored, as he turned to face the shocked girl with her white hair swaying in the moonlight, a look of disbelief on her face as she covered her ears, shaking it. Not true, it can't be. Not true. It's a lie. Ha ha ha. Always the child. Lilith. The first thought that came into this boy's mind. The deepest and most honest thought, was not anger. Nor hatred from the pain she caused him. Alistair walked towards the stunned Lilith, his feet moving with each spoken word until he stood less than an inch from her face, looking up at him with the mature and slightly more traditional-looking clothing. Lilith, he wanted to save her, to heal her wounds no matter the cost. The Raven of this world wanted to save her, even at the cost of his own life. Eve was the most affected by his words, the fear shone towards the man who tortured her, she looked not at the former shadow just taking control during this dream, watery eyes as she felt the warm purple light flowing through her body. It cycled around her body before wrapping her heart gently and filling her body with delight, then performing another cycle. But Alistair. How can we defeat them without taking Eve's power into your body and merging? Ha! Truly. Whether by luck or fate, that failed technique you tried to create. Eve finished it. The incomplete gates of bliss. Ah! But how? Tearing their bodies apart, draining them dry of vitality in all energy. It wasn't finished. The technique would kill the one who tried to learn it. How many people did we kill to deem it a failure? Lilith. Our time is over. This is the sign. We should rest. Leave the future to our new selves. Ha! You want me to leave it to that girl who spends the day with her fingers buried inside herself as she watches videos of you fucking that damn elf? Her anger was understandable, but he merely smiled at her gently. Slowly the form of the Alistair changed, becoming a more humanoid look, with elven ears and purple eyes, as he held Lilith tightly, her skin also becoming fairer, her eyes now blue as she held on to his back tightly. I don't want to disappear. It's all right, we will go together. Leave everything to Raven. Will it be okay? If they don't defeat them. It's no longer our battle to fight. Leave her all your knowledge if you are worried, I know you secretly adored her like a daughter. She's too tragic. Will they be all right? The two bodies began to fade slowly, the strange Lilith and Alastair ascending into the air as if they were fluttering in the wind and vanishing into the moonlight above. Only Raven and Eve remained in the darkness, her eyes shocked. As her figure began to fade, the dream would soon end. But she was confused. It wasn't that bastard that healed me. But this boy. Raven. Raven. Is he my fated one? No wonder. Finally. You came. All along I was mistaken. All the pain and suffering. It was to guide me to you. Ah. I cannot wait to find you. When my host awakens, she will indeed make you love her. Please wait for me. Raven, the darkness began to waver, like a light bulb on its way out, blinking before it burst. A sudden honk of a car sounded as Raven's mind stopped feeling foggy. He quickly checked his hands only to find they were fine, there were no talons, hooves, or strange scales. Honk. Oi buddy, are you fucking wasted? Get off the damn road. Raven's head turned towards the car, his body slowly moving out of the way as he looked around, only to find himself a few steps from his apartment. The dizzy feeling slowly faded as the full memories of that strange encounter were vividly imprinted in his mind. The peculiar form that looked like him as an elf. But the older Lilith seemed to be a little racist and mean. So much strange shit. But I am glad. That girl was beautiful in the end. Raven thought as he remembered the black-haired girl, with golden eyes, like a little black cat. She said we would meet again. Raven. His head turned to see Lilith in her pajamas and a pair of rabbit slippers as she dashed over to him, rushing at full speed. Her eyes filled with tears and her nose full of snot as she jumped through the air, wrapping her arms around his neck and hugging him tightly, rubbing her face against his chest, sobbing and whimpering like a lost puppy. You're okay. Thank God. Oh gods. Please forgive me. He wrapped his arms around her waist and hugged her tight as she sobbed against his chest. His cheeks reddened as he wiped away some of her tears and kissed her forehead gently. It's okay. It's okay. Why are you so upset? He asked softly, this body slowly walking to his apartment. Lilith took a moment to reply. As she tried to compose herself, those purple eyes, unique to her, glowed under the moonlight as she looked prettier than before. Her height seemed a little taller, too, as she wrapped both legs around his waist. I saw you. You vanished. In my dream. There was another Raven. He changed and became an elf. There was a nasty me. She wanted you to vanish. I was so scared when I woke up. It was dark like a dream. You were gone. I tried to call, but your phone didn't connect. Then the beep. And honk. And you were there. I'm so glad. Thank you for taking me in. For not asking anything of me. But I want to help you. I want to work hard. I don't want to wait at home anymore. Let me go with you. Raven's steps were slow, he listened intently to every word, her sniffles, tears and cries, all of it as he understood that things might have been different, and this girl arriving beside him was some twisted fate, but choosing to keep her with him like this, was his own choice. He learned this much from the vague memories of that strange alternate Alastair. Hey, Lilith. He stepped through the doorway, his handsome face looking down on her, illuminated by the moonlight with a gentle smile. If there were issues in the future, should Emily be upset, he would work hard and convince her, should Phyllis return, Raven would make her accept the situation. Raven couldn't lie and say he loved this girl, but he wanted her to remain close and wished to protect her. For now, that was enough, at least for him. Let's have dinner together. Idiot. I cry so much, and all you think of is that stupid. Ha 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 ha. Idiot, put me down bastard. Your cock is all hard and hurts. Lilith escaped his grasp, rushing away as she began to cackle and laugh manically as she entered the kitchen for a few minutes before popping her body out, wearing the apron she always borrowed, while holding his most handsome chef apron out towards him. "Come on then. Let's cook together, perverted orc." Raven didn't know what the future would bring, nor who they were. All he knew was that he didn't want to see that girl cry and suffer, nor would he wish the same for Lilith and the women around him. He would fight, like his mother, until his last breath. Theta M. So there might be a lot of confusion in this chapter, that's how I intended it to be. From the start, I wanted the link between the murals and Raven to be revealed earlier. Thus I chose the finale of Volume 1. The Alastair and Lilith that appeared were the people from the first mural who fell in love, but the reason he died was not her power. Instead, he was killed by a mysterious enemy. Lilith was jealous of how Alastair and Eve were initially supposed to be married, as they were engaged before their world was destroyed. When they fled using the dungeons, she set Eve to appear 100 years later, and in that time, she developed a trap, corrupted the first reincarnation of Alastair, and twisted his mind to kill and torture her. Thus the second mural was fake. It was manipulated and changed by Lilith. Those two have now moved on, they will enjoy their future together in another dimension, never to be reincarnated in the lower or divine realms again. It's scary to think they seem to want to originally overtake our boy's body and the cute Lilith to live another life. Many things don't make sense, but those after for the future volumes. I hope you enjoyed the novel's first volume. From Volume 2, we have Lilith entering the dungeon. Emily is moving in with them, and more Miriam and Phyllis. Volume 2. To You Who Guides My Path. Coming soon.